Greetings to all the guests and subscribers of my channel. In this video, we will talk about the most ruthless Soviet criminal, nicknamed Mongol. He was a terror in Moscow and despised the concepts of thievery. Enjoy watching. In early November 1981, one of the most daring and dangerous Soviet criminals, Gennady Karkov, nicknamed Mongol, was released early from the penal colony. He was released at the same time as his friend, who by that time had already served his sixth sentence. Meeting his old acquaintance, Mongol offered him a truly revolutionary criminal idea. What is the point of stealing small things and always going to jail for it, when you can take big things from rich Soviet citizens who will not run to complain to the police? In the 60s, a black market began to appear in the USSR. The directors of catering establishments and various factories learned how to use the enterprises they were entrusted with for personal gain. This is how the first Soviet underground rich people began to appear. After that came the farmer, currency traders, underground antique dealers, and jewelers. What they all had in common was that their earnings were considered criminal under Soviet law, and some cases were punished more severely than murder or banditry. Given these circumstances, the rich men were reluctant to deal with the police. Therefore, Mongol reasoned, one could rob this category of Soviet citizens with complete impunity. The main thing is to know whom to rob. Mongol spent the next few months looking for like-minded people. A total of about 30 people were recruited into the gang. Another person known in criminal circles, Vladimir Bykov, joined the gang. But there were newcomers. One of them was a former student of circus school Vyacheslav Ivankov, nicknamed Japanese. Ivankov quickly became the number 2 figure in the Mongol gang after the leader. It was Ivankov who procured several sets of police uniforms, handcuffs, and a real police ID for the gang. For a real ID, he had to get a real policeman drunk in a bar. After giving him some vodka and sleeping pills, Ivankov waited until he fell asleep, after which he took the license from his pocket and disappeared. At the beginning of 1971, rumors spread around Moscow about a wild gang of policemen. The rumors spread among the wealthy, many of whom knew each other. One after another, prominent wealthy men were brutally raided by deranged policemen who used the full arsenal of means of persuasion on them, from threats to brutal torture. In some cases, the criminals performed entire plays in front of their victims. For example, once they were taking an abducted victim in a car into the woods when a policeman stopped them on the highway. When he went to check the trunk where the bound victim was lying, one of the criminals shot him in the back. Choking on blood, the policeman fell. The perpetrators then said that since the kidnapped victim had witnessed the murder, they would have to get rid of her. The frightened victim began begging for her life, giving up all her hiding places where money and valuables were kept. After that, the bloodied policeman, played by Ivankov, stood up, and the criminals left to clean out the stashes of the victim they had duped. The theatrics, however, were a rarity. Much more often the criminals acted with brute force. The bandits would enter the victim's apartment with the help of a disguised policeman or stop her in the street and ask her to sit in the car under plausible pretext. Then the person was taken out into the woods. If he did not agree to give up all the money voluntarily, they would roll him in a coffin and start sawing him methodically until he agreed. Or they staged his burial alive. In other cases, the victim was simply beaten and tortured until he gave up all his valuables. Mongol's mistake was to impose tribute on the rich. One of the victims reasoned that a horrible end was better than paying the Mongol his whole life and decided to complain to the real policeman. Through a network of police informants, they managed to identify several members of the gang and threw them to the leaders. The Mongol was arrested in August 1971. In 1972, the trial of the gang of policemen was held. Almost all members of the Mongol gang received 15 years in prison. Mongol himself served his sentence under the strictest and toughest regime of all that existed in the USSR. After so many years in prison, Mongol's health deteriorated. On release, he became seriously ill and died of cirrhosis of the liver in a Moscow hospital in October 1994. At that time, his former student, Vyacheslav Ivankov, nicknamed the Japanese, whose name had already made a name for himself in the Soviet Union and Russia, was trying to conquer America. The student managed to surpass his teacher. While Mongol was only one of the first Soviet racketeers, the Japanese has become a criminal figure on an international scale.